Trying to figure out how you could blow a 7-point lead in that period of time, play so poorly in some ways and so good in other ways. What we had is, I thought Xavier was unbelievable in the first half. We just can't get everybody on the same page at the same time. Second half, I thought the job we did defensively to hold them to 14 points in 17 minutes and then 14 in 3 minutes is mind-boggling. But there were some breakdowns on how we were covering some stuff. A three that the big kid hit shouldn't have happened, and neither should have.
Smile more, Coach.
What's up, JJ? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man.
One of the bright spots of my day. Are you coming back to say that you're playing with us now? To hell with Memphis? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that right now. I said it right now. Right there.
Come on up here and say hello. It's not that formal. How you doing? Good.
How you doing? I'm great. I'm great. Thank you.
See your boy.
Yeah. I'm about to work out right now.
All right, man. I'll see you up there a little bit.
Yep.
So the issue is we felt like we took a few bad shots, but not many. But we do have to know that in the last 5 minutes of a game, our best shooters got to take the 3-point shots, not just shooters that are open. We thought defensively we were phenomenal the second half. Even at the end, they hit a couple shots after going 0 for 10 from 3. But now how do you move forward? Well, we move forward by looking at, I had a meeting early this morning. I spent all night looking at where we've been, and it seems like there's been a common denominator here that from Kentucky on, with 2 minutes left to go in the game, we're down 2, we're down 1, down 4 a couple times. Either a great play by them, Kentucky, Virginia Tech hits a 3 laying on his back, or a bad play for us, the 3 games when we missed all the layups. You put those two things together, and I had a slideshow that I made this morning that of the 9 games, there were 5 of them that were more than winnable. I think our average margin of being down was minus 1.1 in the last 2 minutes of all the losses. So what I'm trying to sell is, not to you, because fans don't believe it, but to my players, is we're a basket away, we're a layup away, we're one stop away from being very, very, very good. Winning 3-4 more games easily. And I've been there in 2005 before with a similar deal where I don't know what we finished in the league. It was 4th or 5th. A lot of close losses, and was able to right the ship a little bit. I felt like our guys played hard. I just felt like we didn't play as well in that first half. And the biggest issue was in the first half was our transition defense. And they were very good in the first half. We were much better in the second half. So I'm disappointed with our performance, especially that first half. We need to find ways to win games instead of finding ways to lose games. But in all 9 of those games, I throw out Duke and Purdue and say we got our butts kicked. And then the other 7, I showed them where with 2 minutes left to go in the game, the worst was a 6-point negative. Most of them were 1 and 2 points. And that's what we got to do. So I thought Cassius and Xavier, we were putting a little too much on them. Aaron Henry, after a bad first half, played much better in the second half. Rocket, I thought one of the commentators made a good point. We have to get back to role playing a little bit. And he made a couple shots, missed a couple shots, maybe took one bad shot. But the defense he played in the second half on that kid was unbelievable. And for a freshman to do that, that's a big plus that we're going to move forward on. And I guess I got to congratulate Xavier and Tamia. They finally had their little boy early this morning. So took care of that. That was a plus. As far as Nebraska goes, obviously, I think they're very well coached. I'm a big fan of Fred Hoiberg. He, came here during his year off, spent some time with us here and there. And even though they've lost 10 in a row, they have a strange team, and he'd be the first to tell you. They have a bunch of players who can fill it up. They played a lot of people tough. They just took Maryland right to the wire, missed a layup to win it at Maryland. So they've got guys that can hit threes. They got guys that in open court are very, very good. They've had some very tough losses. They have 3 players in double figures. The Cheatham kid we played against, he started at Marquette, and then he went to Florida Gulf Coast. Then he went to Nebraska. He's signed up. I think Billis has a travel agency now, so he can get these guys from spot to spot. So I'll have to see if Jay will give me a discount on that. But we saw him last year at Florida Gulf Coast, and he is a very good player. Mac is, I think, an electrifying player. He averages 7 assists, quicker than quick, and he can get shots up. And they've got 7 players that have hit at least 23s, so that can be good news and bad news. So we're going to worry a lot about Michigan State today. We'll start preparing for Nebraska tomorrow and see if we can convince our team that we've been an eyelash away, and that's been in every game but 2. And so it's funny how when you win by 1 point, you're God, and when you lose by 1 point, you're the other kind. And that's what I got to do now. That's what I got to build on. So, question.
Tom, the sky isn't falling regardless of what people think. It's just making adjustments. But coming down the stretch, how do you place into a team a sense of urgency when they're this young?
It's been a problem. It's been a problem. Our youth's been a problem. One good thing, I thought, if there were some positives from that game, Xavier offensively was very good. Defensively, he was very good early, and then we struggled on some assignments late. But I thought Kyle Arns is playing better every game. And Kithier really helped us in this game, really helped us. His experience compared to the guys without experience. And if Arns can keep playing better, we can play more small ball at times, which could help us too. It's, we got to get Gabe Brown playing good again, and, he's might as well be one of those freshmen as far as, Rocket's got a different mentality than 90% of the freshmen. Joey Hauser just was telling me in my office that he's just got a mentality that's, bring on the world, I'm going to take you on. And not many guys have that. Everybody's confident outwardly and not confident inwardly. He's confident inwardly, and believe it or not as bad outwardly. In other words, he's stayed pretty human and pretty humble. So I got to build with Rocket. I got to get maybe Kithier going a little bit more. Get Marcus Bingham back in there some, because I think Xavier needs some rest. Everybody says, it's been the same problem with your foreman, and it has. But that's part of, when you all have all young foremen, somebody's got to step up. And Kithier maybe would have been the guy, and then he was out for a while. So we're just trying to build, because watching the film, he did a lot of good things on his cutouts, on his guarding, on his helping a little bit more like Kenny, where the other freshmen that don't know, don't help, don't get in the lanes, and create some issues for us. So I don't know, I still feel like we're right there. I just feel like we found ways to lose instead of find ways to win a couple of these games, and we're 17-9, and we got a chance to right the ship yet.
With seeing some of those, like that first part of the second half and some of the better stretches you guys have played, how maddening is that for you as a coach, but also how encouraging is it to know that it's there?
That is a good question, because it is maddening. It is maddening. You know, it's, you sit there and say, you know, when do people, you know, wake up, and you're saying the same thing over and over. But I just keep going back to, we're very young. Our 3 experienced guys, one's been out over half the year, one's got a full plate, and the other one is, you know, has had a few distractions recently. And so we're relying a lot on those young guys, and I've got to be as patient as I can be with them, because they have done some good things. I mean, the second half, you know, Kithier did some good things. Rocket has done some good things. You know, Kyle brings a sense of calmness to that team, and always knows that he's in the right spot and where he is. He doesn't get driven and out-muscled like some of our guys did. So it's encouraging. I'm not a guy that, first of all, the glass is never half full, it's always half empty with me. But it's also, when I sat there at 4 this morning and I was going through my film at my house, and I took the last 3 minutes of those 9 games, or 7 games, I kind of even was shocked myself. And so I came in early because we had an early morning meeting, and I had my video guy put all those things together, and I mean, we are right there. I mean, you know, you just think of the start. You know, we're 2 down, making, you know, momentum on our side, and what's his name hits that 3 from the middle of nowhere against Kentucky, and then those of you that were in Maui were 2 down and making a run, and he hits a 3 in front of their bench, that in front of our bench, that was their bench. That was, I'd give them that shot 9 out of 10 times, and then we know about that 3-game losing streak where we miss more layups than should be legal. And you know, I mean, it's going to happen. It shouldn't happen. It's going to happen. But did you play good enough to be in the game? Did you play good enough to win the game? Doug Herner's got a great line. Did you lose the game, or did they win the game? And probably of 7 of those 7, of those 7 that I consider real losses, because the 2 we lost that we got our butts kicked, we got killed. But in those other 7, I think we lost at least 5 of them, and that's what we can hopefully control.
First of all, just checking, Xavier will be with you Thursday.
Yeah, unless I think everything's fine. At least it was at 4:38 or something, whatever the time was this morning. But yeah, I think he will be. I think it was something that he and Tamia decided to do, which was only a week off, but he just thought it was a great break, and I don't know if he'll be with us today. Knowing Xavier, he probably will, but from what I've been told, everything went well, so I'm happy about that.
And you talked about guys kind of finding role definition. How difficult is that when the rotation is still a moving target? And is there a point where you just say, you know, this is the rotation and ride it, or how does
Yeah,
that
there is.
play
There's
out?
a point, and then something happens. You know, there was a point with Kithier, and something happened. There was a point where we were going to definitely have Arnie, and we talked about starting him, and then something, you know, he goes down with an injury. As far as inside, you know, there was even a point with Marcus, and then we run into a team like Maryland, who plays their big guy out on the perimeter the whole time and is involved in that kind of stuff. So that, you know, you could make a little adjustments. As I said, nobody's reared their heads above, and nobody's reared them way below. And, you know, I mean, I could think of a lot of things I want criticism for. That would be one. You know, I mean, that's a coach's job to try to get that thing a little more even, but they're still playing roughly the same amount of minutes. It's just in different roles, and we're looking for who steps up and who helps us. But when you're dealing with young guys, as I said, Kithier showed the most in this last game by far, and that doesn't mean he's better than Malik or better than this guy, but he makes less mistakes. He understands what we're doing because he's been in the program. Even though he didn't play a ton last year, he played more than Gabe and more than any of those other freshmen other than Rocket. So, yeah, I think that's definitely part of the problem, but it's that way for everybody right now. It really is.
Talking about Kyle a little bit, when at this point in the season, you see the way he's playing right now, are we still limiting his minutes based on the injuries and trying to, it's almost a thing like we're better getting him for 12 or 13 minutes and pushing him for 25 and having a problem? And is there a point where you say, the hell with that, we're playing yet? Or does he say,
Yeah.
just play me?
You know what? Yes. I don't remember if you remember the play, but there was a play that was identical to the game at Michigan or at Chicago last year where 3 guys went up for the ball late in the game, and he went up like a man and knocked it away from somebody, and that was the first time since that game that he went up in traffic, and he'd tell you that, and he's not a soft kid. It's and then for our trainers, you know, it's been a couple of weeks now that he's been practicing full go. Deep down, am I saying 14 would be better than 22 if it means we can keep him? Probably, just like I tell him, you know, get out of a little bit of this practice, get out of a little bit of that. But now, I think his confidence is back where he's, you know, you can't live to die, as I've said. You can't do that. You can't live to avoid injuries. You gotta live to do your best, and whatever happens, happens. Easier said than done, I guess. But I think he's back to that mental frame of mind, and that would help us a lot because he just gives us some things. And then you go with the, you know, we've always talked at the beginning of the year about going smaller some, but when you don't know if that guy will be able to go, and that's where I have some problems. You want to practice that way, then you don't know if that guy can go. And then you start practicing that way, and then he gets hurt again. Now you've thrown everything else off. It's been as confusing of a year as I've had, and I still think we're 17-9. And looking at my board today, you know, we're if those 3 or 4 games that I think even we should have won, not could have, should have. You know, where would we be right now? We'd be sitting there at 20-5, and we'd be talking about being a top 15 team. So I do. I'm not trying to sell anybody. I do think we can do what we can do, but things have to change too. We have to get a little more consistent. We have to get consistent with halves. The interesting thing you guys always bring up, and I bring up to you, why the bad starts. Okay, well, we've had a couple of decent starts. Why the turnovers? We've had a 7 and 8 turnover. We've improved in that area. I think of the 9 losses, the least we were down at halftime was 4. The most was 16, and there were more than a couple that were 8, 10, 12, 8, 6, 8. And so then you're always playing catch up. Is that why you're wearing down at the end, you know? So all my looks this morning, instead of sleeping, give me a lot of things to speculate and to look at. And I thought I'd share it with my team because, listen, everybody knows what happens when you lose some games. And so I tried to show them where I think the things we can still accomplish if we get a little more consistent in a couple areas. One is starting out better. One is not turning the ball over. Believe it or not, and it really helped to have that 2000 team back. as Alan Gagne said after the game. Probably the biggest negative of this team right now is we're giving up offensive rebounds. First half was ridiculous again. And those offensive rebounds that we're giving up, we just don't play the physical brand of practice because of the number of injuries we've had. And so I blame nobody but myself on that. But again, I have to say, am I better off doing this or doing this? Well, I'm better off doing who I am and who we are, because you can lose a lot anyway. You can lose a lot of ways. You can only win certain ways. That's the way we're going to look at it now.
Tom, freakishly, I was going to ask you about rebounding, so I will. When you were getting doubled up on the boards in the first half, what wasn't happening, and then obviously in the second half, your team did much better. Who was rebounding? Maybe that wasn't doing it before, and what are you seeing there when you are or aren't?
Well, Aaron had one rebound the first half. I think he had 5 the second half. That was one. Xavier had a bunch of rebounds the first half. Gabe didn't have any. I don't think. Rocket had a couple, but we're not using him to rebound as much. I would think the big difference is they were penetrating a lot. Or in the second half, we really did a good job. We had Rocket in foul trouble the first half. He only played 5 or 6 minutes, and Henny did a good job on his guy. But they have 2 guys that penetrate, Iola and him, and we had Henny on one and Rocket on the other. You stop dribble penetration. Teams don't have to help. Ball goes up. Harder to cut out once they penetrate. Second half, they didn't get much penetration at all, and that was a major difference, I think, in our rebounding. Plus, we talked about it at halftime extensively, and the sense of urgency that you brought up, is just harder to get with young guys sometimes, and then I think Xavier, I thought he wore down at the end, and I don't know why, but probably got a lot on his mind, and I think he wore down some, and there were some assignment things that he never messes up, and they got 2 threes that way, and all you got to do is get one less 3, and if one of those doesn't go in, they were 0 for 10 for God's sakes, and made 4 in a row, 14 points, then make 14 in 3 minutes. I mean, I've never seen more bizarre stats than that, and give them credit, because that's what winning programs do, and I give Cowan credit. I mean, he airballed one, and then he hits 3 in a row, and that's didn't force things, he did a hell of a job.
Tom, for all you're still trying to figure out before March, I'm wondering if being sort of, I don't say out of the Big Ten race, but not in a great spot, doesn't playing on the road at Penn State and Maryland still to go, that stuff doesn't help you if you're trying to win a conference, but if you're trying to find stuff out, that's where you find out what's real about your team. Do you now look at the schedule differently in terms of those being opportunities to get yourself wherever you need to go?
I do. That was one of the things we talked about this morning. Sometimes too, younger guys can't handle the pressure. Everybody wants to go where you are playing for championships. I mean, there's no secret. We need more than a miracle to win the Big Ten right now with 5 games left. Still possible in this league the way it goes, but so now I told them, you can coach a little different, you can play a little different. Some of that works positively, some of it works negatively. In other words, we're going to have to rest some guys. We're going to have to hold even our top guys more accountable on some things, and figure out what it's going to take to win the conference tournament and hopefully the NCAA tournament. Because you don't have as good a shot to win the league. There's no secrets about that. And we still got a lot of chance to win a lot of games to increase our seeding. But that's exactly what we talked about this morning too. So I would agree.
So when you mentioned to them or showed the players that they're a layup away or an eyelash away, How is it resonating with them? Are they realizing these things, or does it feel like something that you're just continuing to preach, per se?
Well, you're too young to have kids, so you continue to preach, as most of you do.
She's older than Xavier.
Huh?
She's older than Xavier.
She's older than Xavier, but she doesn't have
Way
kids.
older.
Yeah, but she doesn't have kids. No, I mean, you know what? It is constantly preaching. And do they get it? You know, like I look at Xavier now, I look at Rocket now, and I looked at Rocket early in the year, and I see a big change in a lot of things. But some other guys, I don't see as big a change. And, you know, it's been disappointing. I think those 3 sophomores have so much more talent to give things to. Now, in Marky's case, you know, it's still going to take another year probably to get him where he needs to be, just because of the physical strength and things like that. But there's no reason Gabe and Aaron shouldn't be living on those offensive glass, and they should be, you know, rebounding the daylights out of the ball. And so we'll see what they do. But I think they understood it. I think they got it. I think, you know, nobody left there saying, oh, good, man, we just make another layup and we'd be winning the Big Ten. And that's not what I was trying to say. I was just trying to show them how much a layup, a free throw, a turnover changes a game. And so we showed the last 2 or 3 minutes of each one of those games. And it was like, even my staff, who didn't know I was going to do it, you know, later said, wow, you know, I probably should have brought it down and showed you. You'd say, wow, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, at the end of a lot of years. And here's the other thing I did. I put on there the losses in all the conference games and the Kentucky and Duke. And then I put the wins. And where in the last 2 or 3 minutes, we averaged being like 1.5 points behind, okay? On the wins, we averaged being like 17 ahead. In other words, you know, you have those years where you say, like you could say, well, you could have lost the Illinois game. And we could have, but we were 16 up, but we could have lost that game. But all those other games, you know, Illinois, Michigan, Northwestern, Wisconsin here, you know, we were winning by 20 points. So there is some significance to it, that it's not one of those years where, okay, you could have lost 5, and okay, over here you could have won 5. It's, you could have won 6, and maybe you could have lost 1, maybe. So I think that, I don't know if it helped. I don't know if it helped as much as the lack of sleep I got, but it was fun for me anyway. I got something out of it. Unfortunately, I don't get to play.
Time for a couple more.
Tom, I was wondering if Jack approaches this week any different going up against his dad.
You know, I love Jack. I mean, Jack, you know, today in the meeting, he was really good. You can just tell he's a coach's son. I'm sure it'll be a little weird. I know his grandparents will be there. I know his mom will be there, and his brothers. And but, you know, Jack, being a coach's son, he understands the situation. You know, they all got to pull for dad, so that's where he gets paid. And I'm gonna pull for Jack because I love him. But I don't know, that it's got to be strange, you know. I never did it, so I don't know what it's like. But I'm sure it's an interesting time for him. And you know, they played so many teams close. They beat Purdue there. A lot of very close games, and then they've had some games where it's probably worn on them, you know. But now they get 4 or 5 days to prepare for us like we do for them, and it'll be a big game. The place will be packed, and the extra hype of the father-son thing will be something. And you know, so I don't know, we just got to worry about us, and I'll worry about Jack some, and I'll feel better when it's over, probably.
Tom, you seem like you've been happy with the Rockets' aggression lately, and also okay with the shot selection. I wonder how hard that can be to balance the two. You know,
let's go halfway. I mean, I'm
okay.
pleased with. No, I think he's changed a lot. You don't see that stopping and, rising up, which he can make. And the day will come when he'll be able to make that, and he'll really be, because he's got an unbelievable first step. And, the one that almost banked in I thought was bad, but I thought the 2 on the side was a good shot. The layup was a good shot. Just missed it, And yet he's playing so hard, and he's grown so much where he talks in huddles, he does different things. So I am pleased with his progress. For a freshman, I think he's done an unbelievable job. I wish those other guys would have the emotion that he has and the desire. They're a little quieter and this and that. But, once in a while, Rocket is Rocket. He's going to be in the same mold of the Travises and of the Denzels and in the Draymonts and Cleveses, where, he's going to wear his emotions on his sleeve. And for me, I like it because at least I know. And yet he's really kind of made some adjustments that, just like, he helped out a couple times when maybe he shouldn't have. And it looked like it was his fault. And trust me, there were some other people involved in that thing. And yet after the game, he took the blame. And God, you gotta love that. Most of the time, everybody, this day and age, everybody avoids the blame, So I have been pleased with it.
One more, Honda.
I know that
Guys with the mics are slow today. Would you have a bad night or what?
motivating you is winning, Tom. Very little else, but respect, you have said before, for you and your program meant a lot as you built it. Mark Turgeon, obviously a good coach afterwards. I don't know if you saw his comments, called you the coach of your generation, and he went against you, and how big it is. I'm just curious, as you have seen your peers offer you that respect, what that means to you personally.
I think it means you're getting older. But I think for the most part, as I continue striving for another championship, is we've done it the right way here. For all the things that have gone on the last few years, the negativeness, we've done it the right way. I mean, there are no scandals in our program. There are no cheating. There's no going about it a different way. And I think we've been pretty consistent. I would say not as consistent lately, but pretty consistent. And I think that's what everybody looks for. Everybody wants to build that. He's, just think of his week. He almost got beat by Nebraska, then he beats us here. If he loses both those games, he's behind us. So that's the hard part about coaching. But I respect just about every guy in this league. I really do, and I appreciate if they respect what's gone on here. After the game, of course, we had all our players back, and it was, as I told them, it dampens the mood. But where would I rather spend a disappointing night than with the people that I know care about you and care about the program? And I think it was Al that came over the next day, and he was chewing on Steven, and you guys got to do this more and that more and this more. And he looks at me, he says, "Don't you agree?" I said, "I agree." I said, "Did you feel that way 20 years ago?" And he kind of got my point right away, and yet that team probably did. If there's one thing that has been disappointing, as much as I rip the social media, I don't do it justice. I should rip it more, because what it's doing to leadership and this everything about me generation is not conducive to team things. So you've got to really work at it. When you got a couple guys at the top that have been distracted for some very, very good reasons, it just adds to that. And so that's what having those guys back and made me remember that everything wasn't smooth back then, but that common goal and that leadership was rock solid. And yet, it reminded me of some things I'm not doing, you know, like, Coach, aren't you playing the war game anymore? You know, why are you getting out rebounded? And so I tell them the reasons why, and they think I'm getting soft, and some of them agreed. And so it's just adjusting to a new era, and that's what I'm going to do. And so today, instead of having a knockdown drag out with them this morning, it was having a this is where you are. This is the State of the Union for today. This is where I think we are. You know, when you lose, I mean, just think how stupid we are. All me, I'll say me because I don't want to insult you guys. I'm stupid. If you win a game by 2, you played great. If you lose a game by 1, you were awful. And it's 1 3-point shot. You know, the rest of the game might have gone the same way. I guess that's the beauty of sports. But I've got to remind them that it's still how you play the game. The second half, the ball moved better. And the ball moved better. The second half, their ball didn't move as well. They didn't get penetrating dribbles as much. In fact, the only ones they got were late when they kicked it out, hit some threes. And I thought we made some adjustments at halftime that were great. I mean, we really changed the whole game, but guys just don't understand that you don't dig yourself holes and then just come back, and I think that's part of the young guys. Anything else? All right, guys. See you later.